This is Huawei's new Matebook 14. It is a 2024 model now that is revised and just so much better than previous models. OLED screen, 2.8K is the resolution, so it's very sharp. 3:2 aspect ratio, supports 10 touch points, and even their M Pencil stylus. If you happen to like using a stylus on the screen, well, you got that. Backlit keyboard, a full alloy build to it, and it's quite lightweight. It's 1.31 kilos, which is very good, and 14.5 millimeters is the thickness of it, and it is powered by the Core Ultra 7 155H from Intel with its new Arc graphics, which is a big step up from what we previously had, the Iris Xe graphics. The battery capacity is 70 watt hours, and in this walkthrough review, I'll be going through pretty much everything you need to know about this new laptop here from Huawei. So officially, it's about 1.31 kilos, which you can see, but I would round up and call that 1.32. Now, adding the charger to it, it's still very good. Look at this weight, 1.52. Now, it's not as impressive as the Matebook X Pro, but that is still great for a 14-inch laptop. I really like the look and the build quality of this. It's typical Huawei that the build is superb, that there's nothing sharp on this, there's nothing on it that feels cheap, and for the just over €1,000 price point, it's very good. The build, I think, is fantastic, excellent. Definitely right up there with others. So the matte finish on the metal on the alloy here is very good, and I like this light green color. I think it's very nice. So it's a light pastel green. It's not over the top green. It just gives it a nice touch to it, a nice look. And the lid, yes, you can open this up. Well, yeah, just one-handed, as you can see, but no, I am actually going to need another hand. All right, it seems to be a little bit stiff at the moment, but it would probably loosen up. So we have right here a fingerprint reader. This is from GoodX, so you can log straight in with Windows Hello, and that's a lot faster, of course, than typing out passwords. The webcam does not seem to support Windows Hello for login, unfortunately. Palm rest is really nice, and again, this is all metal, the alloy finish, very resistant to fingerprints. Keyboard, this is now a one-piece keyboard here. There is basically really no flex at normal typing pressures, and it's a quiet keyboard. Really nice to type on. I'm used to their keyboards, been using them a lot, and I think they're really good. Now, travel is about 1.4, 1.5 millimeters. It's not super deep, but it's not super shallow either, like you get with some laptops, which I don't personally like. And I do like the fact the power button's separated away here. Half-size arrow keys, unfortunately, and yes, I do have the UK layout here, and it is a backlit keyboard, which is two-stage, as I'll demonstrate now. So that is the first level. It's quite low. And this is the second. I'm not really doing it justice here with my cameras, but it's a nice, decent level. It's not overpowering. I think it's the adequate kind of perfect level that they've found here, Huawei, for the backlit keys. A little hard to see right here, but there is just there a Huawei logo. Now, this part of the laptop under very heavy gaming, it gets a little bit warm, but nothing alarming. The thermals are very good of the unit itself. Palm rest, this side is always cool. This sometimes gets up to around about 35 degrees. This part here, around about 43 that I've measured. And that's an hour of gaming Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which wasn't bad at all. You can see here on the side the downward firing speakers, so there's one of these either side. Now 14.5 millimeters is the thickness, the weight is 1.31 kilos, which is very good. And we're going to HDMI 2.1 that does support variable refresh rate with display out, so that's good. And here a 3.5 millimeter auto jack with mic support. A Type A 3.2 status LED, and this is a full spec Type C port. So video out, data, and power delivery at the 65 watts that it will charge with the included charger. Now, I really do think they should have gone with just one more Type C port, either on this side or the other, because if you're using a Type C cable, you want to plug it in, but you want to use power for the maximum performance, well, you have to unplug it or use a dongle, which is a slight annoyance. And then just on the right side, we have another USB Type A 3.2. Then they've changed the design here with the intake for the coolers and the cooling in this. Now, I can't unfortunately show you the copper transfer pipes, but they've got the new design with the cooler, the shark fins. They have the new design here with the little tiny holes. So there's over 5,000 of these, and they improved the strength of it. It's a bit stronger than having those little slots that they used to before, those little tiny rectangular slits, you could say. And this also does mean the cooling should be better too, and less dust, or the dust shouldn't get in as much as before with the other holes there too. So it's a change there. Cooling has improved up to 45 watts in the power or the performance mode as they call it. And it is, of course, the Ultra 7155H, the 2 downwards firing speakers, rubber feet, very resistant to fingerprints everywhere on this. So just a top-notch build quality with the Matebook 14. Now looking at the excellent screen that this does have. I mean, it is top 10 OLED 2.8K screen, 3:2 aspect ratio. Notice that the bezels left and right are very good. Top and bottom aren't bad at all. They've rounded the edges, just trying to make this laptop look a little bit more modern. 3:2 aspect ratio, so this is good for work, for spreadsheets, websites, things like that. I think it is ideal. A lot of laptops are 16:10, but I do like this. I think it really does suit for a more business-orientated laptop. Now, the refresh rate, this scales from and does go from a 48 to 120 is the variable refresh rate. Touch response, very good. Accuracy is really good. It's fully laminated and it does support 10 touch points. And even their M Pencil stylus, the 3rd generation one, which unfortunately I don't have at the time of this video, so I can't demonstrate it, but it will be really good. Good pressure sensitivity, really accurate. I have used it before with previous products and it is excellent. So they have also 1920 Hertz with the refresh rate, and this means that you do not see any flicker. I mean, I'll lower the brightness right down and look at how dark it goes. I mean, it goes that dark that my camera can't even see it basically. It's pretty much just off, which is really good. You can get it nice and dull for using it late at night. Now, it does support also blue light filtering, and this is hardware level, so that's really good for your health and everything. Certified for all of that. And the color coverage, well, let's talk a little bit about this. What I've done is just calibrated and measured it with my Spider X Pro, and I'm surprised to see between the calibrated view, which we are currently looking at, and I switch over to uncalibrated and notice that there is barely any difference. It's that good there, calibration out of the box, and it's really accurate. The colors, OLED's just fantastic, those deep blacks. So the color gamut coverage here, sRGB 100%, NTSC 85%, and the one I want, which is Adobe RGB, 87%. Now, their claim is 97%, so it's a little bit off that. Just like their brightness claim should be 450 nits. Plugged in, maximum brightness, I get 333 nits, but it should be able to do a lot more. But even so, right now, I only tend to use about the brightness set to around about 60% or so. It is really bright. And finally, P3 color coverage, that is 98%. The webcam is in its normal location here, so in the top bezel. It does have microphones either side of it for your audio. Now, there is no privacy shutter, but through PC Manager, you can disable it. And here is our camera. This is me just sitting at the laptop on a desk, and I've got standard room lighting on, so not my powerful studio lights. The microphones sound good. The webcam quality is full HD and it's up to 60 frames per second. And with this software using the PC Manager, you can adjust a few things. So you've got the different backgrounds here, which I'll test out now. Meeting room. I quite like the way it does this, but you can see the frame rate suffers a little when you put the virtual background on. It seems to be that trade-off. Now, if I turn it off, you'll see the frame rate is now better. It doesn't look choppy, the video. And I can turn beautifying on. Now, not that I'll use this at all, but hey, some people out there like that. You've got auto centering, so it's going to center me in the image. So if I tend to move about a little bit, like over here, it'll eventually move over. And some people like this feature. It's like it's panning around, keeping you centered. Useful to have. This is my favorite. It looks like I'm sitting on the beach somewhere because it's animated. And you can put your own personal background in if you wanted to as well. So good webcam, good setup. It just is the frame rate that bothers me a little bit using those different backgrounds, that it's now a bit choppy. Is it too bad? I don't know. I think it's still usable but I would probably just stick to this, the normal background, to keep things fluid. So here we are in Windows. It is Windows 11 Home, the version we do get with the Matebook 14, not Windows 11 Pro, but you can easily upgrade to that. In the device manager, there's a couple of things I wanted to point out. So our chipset is the Core Ultra 7155H, 16 cores, 22 threads, maximum turbo is 8.4. So it's a very potent chipset considering it's got a lot of threads, a lot of cores for a 14-inch laptop, which is very good. We have the AI boost here, so that's the NPU we now get with these new Ultra chipsets. The Ultra chipset does have this, which is the Intel Arc graphics here as well, which is a lot better than the Iris Xe graphics we had previously. They've really stepped up the performance, and it's close to about double the performance now what we used to have there. Something else that's interesting is that the wireless card, this is non-upgradable. It's part of the motherboard. The RAM cannot be upgraded either. This is the AX201, and that's Wi-Fi 6, so it's not Wi-Fi 6E or the latest, which is Wi-Fi 7. But I have really good range of reception. Speeds and throughput has been fine, no problems with it. So the storage is a 1 terabyte drive that we get with this configuration with a 16 gigabytes of RAM. And that is DDR5 LPX RAM that they're using. Now, according to Windows, it's showing the speeds as 6,000 megatransfers, and not the fastest, which is 7,500 that the chipset can do. And note that they've partitioned it like this. They still keep doing this Huawei. So it's 200 gigabytes for Windows and 731 as our local disk drive, which is fine. I mean, if you do have all your files on that and you do a factory reset, you can keep those files there still without losing them. So that's a bonus there of doing that. But I'd rather have it just all in one. And I think most people would probably be the same. Performance-wise, chipset. So the Ultra 7 155H, very potent, really good. You can see multi-core score is excellent with all the threads that it does have. Kind of makes sense. Single core score, very good. But compared to last generation, the 13th gen, it's falling behind actually a little bit from what I've seen from some of those other chips, like say the 1360p could do around this, or even better, around about say 2500 or 2400, but it still is, everything's quick and snappy, and we have the Super Turbo algorithm as well with Huawei, which is speeding things up a little bit there. So graphics integrated, this is an extremely good score for integrated graphics, getting faster with synthetic benchmarks than the AMD Radeon 780M. CPU score, again, is excellent there. But when it's real-world gaming, as I'll show you a little bit later on with this particular laptop, it falls behind the 780M from AMD. But here, an excellent score. That's above average for the Arc graphics in this particular chipset. So good. This was all run in the performance mode, which Huawei does have. And the SSD speeds, I have those here too as well. So you can see that PCIe 4.0, good, decent speeds, but not the fastest out there for PCIe 4.0. This is often the case that brands will use drives that are not the fastest, but still, I think it's decent. It's still good. I don't think anyone's going to really be complaining about that. Cinebench R23, multi-core score there of just over 13,000 points. And the 1700 score here we get for single core performance is also very good. Now, video playback, all the files I've been testing out, really good with the Arc graphics. This is just a demo one here that I'll play, and you'll see that the performance of it is very good, that it does not drop any frames. Starts out really well. This used to be a little bit laggy. Oh, there we go. It did show a bit of a lag, but it's to do with the mouse cursor moving and the controls coming up that provoked that little bit of choppiness. Otherwise, if I keep my mouse out of the way, when that disappears, this is 4K 60 frames per second, plays that back really well. VP9 codec, really good, and decoding YouTube footage at 4K is also very fluid with this, no problems at all. So everything's all checking out really quick. Great performance, very quick and snappy. For the built-in software we do get with it, there is the Huawei PC Manager. Now, this is very handy for, I think, the most important thing is getting all your drivers and your BIOS up to date. And I've already run this. I do this with every single device that I test, of course, make sure it's all on the latest and the greatest when it comes to the firmwares, BIOSes, drivers. That's all done. You have their power modes too. Now, you can do it through here. You can go through the performance modes. So you've got the power saving. That's great for when you're on the battery. It's going to reduce the fan noise. Balanced is what most people will use. And performance, for all my benchmarks, gaming, and testing, I've been using this. Now, there is a shortcut, which is function P, so you can cycle through them. And I normally use this. It's just a lot quicker than having to go through this menu here. So I'll keep it in the performance mode. Now, you've got their other things in here, like the quick services to do with the model there, troubleshooting tips, Huawei Share. So if you're going to be wirelessly transferring files to and from your Huawei phone, you can do that. Your devices here, so you can have an extended display. This is great if you are using, say, one of their Huawei tablets, one of their MatePads, then you can use that as a secondary display. Your tablet, your phone can be connected here, and settings there for the camera, also to turn that off and disable it completely if you want to have that off for privacy reasons or whatever. And it's all in here. So it is very useful software, the PC Manager. They also have the control panel. This comes up and you've got just quick shortcuts for everything there. Their Super Hub, Pro Color, Eye Comfort is all there. Now the refresh rate, this is dynamic. So from 48 Hertz up to 120. Demanding work on this Matebook 14 is very good. Something like video editing that I'm testing now with Adobe Premiere Pro. This is the latest version. The timeline is excellent. Now, I have a quarter playback set. You don't really want to go over that, but this used to be quite laggy on the integrated graphics of the previous generations. If you remember back that far, I certainly do. And it's to the point now that the art graphics, at least with the optimizations that Adobe has, and like I always do, I'm testing out here the YouTube preset. This is at 4K, and it is going to be hardware accelerated, being Intel and using their quick sync. It definitely speeds things up a little bit. Now the RAM, we've got this to 16 here. Ideally, I think 32, especially if you're going to be doing video editing in 4K, it really should be the minimum, the base RAM it comes with, but sadly it's 16, but I believe there will be a 32 gigabyte option with this model. I know with the MateBook X Pro, there definitely is a 32 gigabyte option. I think it starts at 32 gigabytes, that model there too. So I will test the export time, and this should be around about 30 seconds for 1 minute of footage. So it is very quick, and you'll see that it is powering through this, steaming ahead. And it is the Arc graphics that's doing most of the heavy lifting here, encoding that I should say. And it is just about to finish up. And there we go. I'm slow on the timer there. About 31 seconds. If you factor in my little delays there. But that is excellent. Great performance. And I'm just amazed at how well now, with integrated graphics, you can edit 4K videos. Now, a little bit of a gaming test. While it's not a laptop that is designed for gaming, you can do a little. And this is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I have set to the lower setting preset at 1080p, running the in-game benchmark. And as you can see, the frame rate, well, so far, it's not even near 60 frames per second, so would probably run better at 720p. But let's have a look at the end result. All right, so that averaged 38 frames per second, and you would have probably seen that the RAM was quite full, although it's telling me here it's got up to 8 gigabytes dedicated for the Arc graphics. Well, not amazing, only 49 frames per second average. It's certainly a lot better at 720p, which is what I recommend for the demanding games. The Witcher at 1080p shows us that what I was just saying before, you really want to be keeping with 720p when gaming with demanding newer titles. Now, really old games, yeah, 1080p will be fine, but this just isn't really good enough, I feel. Sure, it's getting over 30 frames per second, but we want at least 60. And we get it, only just, as you can see now, at 720p, 60 frames per second, making this game now playable. Now, the games that do run really well with a great frame rate here, this is Counter-Strike 2, set to 1080p, and I'm getting, well, on the low preset, normally well over 100 frames per second all of the time here, so that is excellent. It means that these lighter titles, competitive games out there that you might want to play on the side, will run really well on this with the Arc graphics, much better than the Iris Xe we previously had. Here are our thermals. So you can see it hit 101 degrees Celsius. Not good. And it thermal throttled. Now, this happened only when I ran Cinebench R23, really stressing it out. Otherwise, thermals when gaming were in the late 70s, early 80s. Exporting video, it was in about the 60s to early 70s. So the thermals are in general really good unless you run a real demanding stress test. But it hit 101, but then what happens is it drops right down. So that's just the fan profiles. It took a while for the fans to ramp up to then get the temperatures down to about the 80s. So yes, it's going to happen, but it's really not too bad. Overall, thermals and fan noise are excellent. So the fan noise sample I'm going to give you now is worst case scenario that I do. This is Cinebench. It's in the performance mode. It's as loud as it's going to get, but normally this is a very quiet laptop. I love the fan noise. Speaker-wise, very good. I think for this style of laptop, especially considering it's just 14 inches, not a gaming laptop either. There's no little separate sub, but it puts out a little bit of bass, and those downward firing speakers, if off a surface like this, which is a hard table, of course, on your lap, it's going to sound a little bit different, but it does sound pretty good. So this sample is some no copyright songs here, just so I don't get a strike. That's the reason I'm using it. And I'll play it at 100%, and you will hear from this that you've got decent vocals, mids, and the bass, I think, is not bad at all for a laptop. And mind you, it's at 100%. The bass went a little bit low, doesn't sound quite as punchy, but still, I'm impressed. Good speakers in the Matebook 14. And for Linux support, you'll be pleased to know that almost everything does seem to work. So I have wireless working, Bluetooth working, the audio controls, brightness, that is working. And it's just the touchscreen. Only the touchscreen is the thing that doesn't work for me. Okay, so battery life, you are looking around about 7.5 hours. In my test with the OLED screen, the variable refresh rate, and 30% brightness. And this is web browsing, YouTube, documents as well. So nothing that is heavy workloads. If you were going to be editing videos, then expect around 4 hours because that is very demanding. And if you were gaming or pushing 3D, you'd notice that too as well. So there's a lot of welcome changes, refinements compared to the previous gen. I really love this screen here. So 2.8K, 3.2 aspect ratio to it, the 10 touch points that it does support, stylus support as well with the M Pencil. Unfortunately, I couldn't show that in this video. You get their Super Turbo, that's optimization there with the algorithm they have that just to speed things up a little bit. You get Huawei Super Device too as well, which is very handy. It's actually useful software. Touchpad's great, trackpad is great overall, build quality is excellent. I love this green color and the fact that it doesn't really show fingerprints and smudges. Darker colors really do, but this does not. And then really it's all good. But there are a few little niggles from me that I have discovered. And one is, as I mentioned when we looked at the ports, I think it should have another Type-C port. That's just me personally. I'm a little annoyed that when I have to plug in a Type-C cable for Type-C devices or whatnot, that I need to unplug the power to plug them in. If there was another port, then it wouldn't be an issue. I know we have a full-size HDMI, which means for display out, you can keep it powered at the same time, then there's not that problem. But another Type-C port would have been good, and it would have been great if it was, say, another or a Thunderbolt 4 port on this. Again, great. RAM, it's 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM. It's fine, right, for most tasks and whatnot, but I would like to see 32 gigabytes as the base kind of level. But I guess that's where they want you to go for the Matebook X Pro. You go for that model because it's got the 32 gigabytes of RAM, it's more refined, it's even lighter weight. But this is an excellent, I think, for the price point offer, what they've got, the spec-wise, it should really be great for most people. Now, if you're going to be editing a lot of video and doing a lot of work like that, this is where the art graphics, I think, is better than the Radeon 780M. At least in my testing, I've noticed that Adobe Premiere Pro favors Intel. You've got the Intel QuickSync support for decoding and encoding, so it's very fast for that, for encoding, sorry. And then the Arc Media Engine is just so much better than Iris Xe, and even better than the 780M. So I've noticed with video editing, especially at 4K, its performance is almost, and feels almost like a dedicated GPU. Gaming-wise, it's not a gaming laptop, but it can do a little, all right? If you wanted to play a bit of Counter-Strike in between business meetings and whatnot, then it can do it. But the 780M is better at gaming slightly. For integrated graphics, it's still the champ for gaming. However, for productivity, I do think that the Arc graphics has an edge there. So all up, an excellent machine. The screen, OLED, the deep blacks you get, the brightness, the build quality, and all for a price of about, I think when it's on sale, that it's going to be about £1,100 and just over €1,000. And I think that's fair for what is on offer here. It's an excellent laptop, yet again, from Huawei. So thank you so much for watching my review of the Matebook 14.